I'm Dakin, a hacker quietly working in the shadows of the deep web. My job is pretty straightforward. Break in, collect sensitive information about women I happen to see on trains, in supermarkets or on the streets, and sell it. That night, while I was uploading a few screenshots of stolen messages onto my deep web account, a customer placed an order. Their request was simple. Spy on the messages of any female student on the subway. I frowned. A strange request, but nothing too difficult for me. Putting on a pair of contact lenses with a hidden camera and a wide-brimmed hat to conceal my face, I stepped out of my apartment and got to work. At 4 p.m, I was on the subway. It wasn't rush hour yet, so the train wasn't too crowded. I quickly scanned the passengers. A short-haired schoolgirl sitting alone caught my eye. She was leaning against the door, her fingers flying across her phone screen. She was the perfect target for today. I pretended to be just another passenger and casually moved closer to her without raising any suspicion. She glanced at me briefly before going back to her texting. Feeling confident, I silently hoped I'd find something interesting to dig up today. It seemed like she was texting a boyfriend named Naga. At first, the messages were pretty ordinary, just small talk and some random complaints. But then the tone began to shift. The words started to change. I began to feel intrigued, waiting for something shady to show up. Strange words appeared. Handle, bury, grind, and finally the head. I held my breath, unable to look away. I was reading the messages of a killer. The next message shocked me to my core. It was a photo of the victim. For a moment, I was frozen in disbelief. Then it hit me. I knew the victim all too well. Months ago, a Telegram account named You hired me to gather every detail about this man. From the way she spoke, I could tell my client was a young woman, while the target was a married man. And now, he was dead. Had I indirectly sent him to his death? Lost in thought, I suddenly jolted back to reality when I noticed the girl had turned around, her eyes locked onto mine.
Stop snooping,
she said, her voice calm but chilling. I cowardly avoided her gaze, pretending I didn't know anything. I tried to act normal, but then her phone chimed with a new message. My curiosity got the better of me, and I stole another glance. The message was from her boyfriend. My heart nearly stopped. I realized I'd crossed a line, and now I was in the sights of two killers. The girl turned to me again, this time flashing a twisted, eerie smile.
Yes.
The blood in my veins turned to ice. I stumbled back, hitting the train door. Without wasting another second, I bolted, running toward the last car of the train. I thought I could escape. After getting back to my apartment, I locked the door. 3 layers of locks. I leaned against it, gasping for air, trying to calm myself. Suddenly, my phone buzzed. It was that you account again. They sent me a video. My hands froze as I stared at the screen, fear rising in my chest. But I couldn't fight my curiosity and tapped to open it. The video. It was me, running back to my apartment. They had been watching me. My hidden camera lenses. They hacked them. My heart raced. Then I heard it. The sound of my electronic lock. Someone was entering my passcode. Before I could react, the door was kicked hard. The locks I thought would protect me started to give way. Panicking, I ran toward the window, but just as I reached it, the glass shattered. Shards flew across the room. She walked in. Yuko, a knife strapped to her thigh, her cold, predatory eyes locking onto mine. I screamed, my voice cracking. "You're you! I gave you the information you wanted. We had a fair deal. Why are you after me?"
Because you know too much.
Before I could react, Naga appeared behind me, grabbing my arms and pinning me in place. I struggled, yelling for help, but it was useless. Yuko stepped closer, her voice cold and even.
I've discovered that handling someone is quite fun. And your deep web account, your client list, that's exactly what I need to hunt down my next victims.
I was making history. The Great Purge had begun, and I, President Donna Jump, was leading humanity toward a golden era. No more parasites. No more freaks. Only real, strong, pure humans. It was the promise I had made to my people, and I intended to keep it. The world had become soft, overrun with degenerates and hybrids, all of them leeching off the hard-working men and women who built civilization. That was about to change. The vampires were first, the so-called immortals who had leached off our resources for centuries, hoarding wealth, manipulating economies. They had outlived their usefulness. Draining resources, I called it. A necessary step toward efficiency. Cutting is a must. And the people cheered, their voices rising in a patriotic fervor that made my chest swell with pride. Next are the hybrids. These half-human creatures never truly belonging to humanity. Their existence is a stain on our species. They are dragged out of their homes, separated from their families, and sent back to where they were born, or, more nobly, they will serve genetic research. Olin Must assured me that his geneticists could filter out the non-human genes, purifying the worthy and discarding the rest. It was distasteful, but necessary. A sacrifice for the greater good. Must reminded me often.
All greatness requires sacrifice. It's a must.
Next came the personnel cuts. Those who were disobedient, those who wasted government funds, had to be eliminated. Must saw inefficiency as a disease. Only the strongest, most loyal remain. Departments merged, agencies dissolved, and redundancies disappeared overnight. Some were reassigned to re-education programs. Others simply vanished overnight. The government wasn't just streamlined. It was purified, cold, ruthless, and absolutely obedient to its new vision. Productivity soared, but at a chilling cost. Fear. I thought I was winning, until I started losing control. It began subtly. My security detail, hand-picked men I trusted, were replaced by silent, pale-faced operatives.
New recruits.
Must said with a reassuring smile. I was too busy to question him, too blinded by my own success. Orders I gave were mysteriously rewritten before reaching my generals. Policies I never signed off on appeared in government documents. When I questioned my staff, They either went missing or returned glassy-eyed, robotic in their responses, like puppets with invisible strings. People were disappearing. Not just dissenters, not just criminals, my allies, my advisors, those closest to me. I told myself it was paranoia, that Must had it under control. But then I confronted him in his sprawling research facility, demanding answers. He sat in his chair, hands steepled, smiling like a man who had already won.
There are still many who are unworthy, even within our own ranks.
For the first time, I felt uneasy. Then came Project Genesis. Must unveiled his masterpiece. New humans. No hunger. No sleep. No emotions. Perfect efficiency. Perfect loyalty to him.
New humans do not protest, do not rebel, do not demand. Isn't that your dream?
I saw it then. He never intended to create a better world for my people. He was building his kingdom, where he alone ruled over a race of mindless drones. I tried to stop him. I failed. His guards, grabbed me. Cold fingers, unyielding strength, not human. Must loomed over me as I was strapped to the surgical table.
We don't need two leaders, Jump. We need one mind, one vision. You and I must become one.
I screamed, fought, but the machine's word and the needles plunged into my veins. I felt myself dissolve. My thoughts, my memories sucked away, absorbed into something else. Someone else. As my mind unraveled, I saw flashes of my past. My rise to power, my promises, my victories. I saw my rallies. The millions who had once cheered my name. The empire I had built with my iron will. And then I saw the future. A world of silent, obedient creatures staring with empty eyes. A world where there was no dissent, no rebellion. A world where I did not exist. The last thing I saw before everything went dark was Olin Must staring down at me, his face shifting, morphing into something grotesquely familiar. My eyes widened in horror as I saw my own reflection in his features, twisted, warped, but undeniably me. The last thing I heard was his voice, layered over mine. Make human great again, starting with myself. The world kneeled before Donna Must, and I was no longer here to stop it. The world did not mourn me. My name was erased from history, my legacy rewritten to suit Must's vision. My supporters, once filled with fire, now stood in line, obedient, unquestioning. News anchors praised the new era, their voices hollow, their eyes vacant. Cities hummed with an eerie silence, the streets patrolled by beings who looked human but were anything but. I existed only as whispers in the shadows, a ghost in the machine of history. But somewhere deep in the recesses of Must's mind, a fragment of me remained, trapped, screaming, watching as my own creation was twisted into something monstrous. And I realized with bitter finality that I had been wrong. Humanity was not made great again. Humanity was gone. I'd been driving nearly 9 hours, the highway unfurling endlessly beneath my tires like a black tongue. The last gas stop was far behind me, and my phone, with its signal fading, had dropped to 9% battery. The GPS kept flickering, struggling to hold on like it was gasping for air. Night had fallen thick and starless, the forest pressing in on both sides of the road. No cars passed, no lights appeared, only the tunnel of trees and my headlights cutting through the dark. I hadn't eaten since noon, and the mix of hunger and fatigue was making my vision blur. That was when I spotted it, a flickering neon light shining faintly through the trees. As I approached, I saw a faded sign reading, "Open 24/7. A dim neon glow hanging above a rundown drive-through burger shack that looked like an old McDonald's, standing alone at a forest junction. The place seemed abandoned, with chipped paint and grimy windows. But the lights were still on, and that was enough. I pulled in, lowered my window, and rolled up to the service screen. "Can I get a large rare beef burger? And a Coke?" No reply. Not at first. Then the window slid open, and a man stepped into view. Gaunt, almost skeletal, pale as wax. His eyes were wrong somehow. Like he wasn't looking at me. Not really. Just through me. He nodded once, wordless, then turned and shuffled into the back. A few minutes later, he returned with a white paper bag. I reached for my wallet to pay, but he didn't even glance at my hand. Just handed me the food and said in a flat voice,
First sign, turn right.
I blinked. "Sorry, what?" He repeated with the exact same rhythm, the exact same blank expression.
First sign, turn right.
"Right," I said awkwardly, "thanks." I rolled up the window and pulled out of the lot, still chewing over his strange demeanor. My stomach growled. I balanced the paper bag on my knee, unwrapped the burger, and took a bite. The meat was cold and sour, with a metallic tang that reminded me of rust. I tried to chew, but the taste turned my stomach. I spat it into the wrapper, tossed the burger onto the back seat and sighed. But whatever, it didn't matter anymore. I just needed to follow the guy's directions. First sign, turn right, and I'd be back on the highway, back to civilization. I turned right at the first sign, just as he told me. But as I kept driving, a strange feeling settled in. This road looked too familiar. The trees outside looked familiar. A certain jagged stump, a pothole on the asphalt I swore I had already swerved around. I shook my head. Just fatigue playing tricks. Then, as I crested a gentle bend in the road, I saw it. Again, that strange McDonald's-looking burger joint. The open 24/7 sign still flickered. The facade was crumbling, and the same man leaned out of the window staring at me with that vacant gaze. I slammed on the brakes, my heart lurched. I rolled down the window. "I already came through here, I followed your instructions." He didn't blink, just handed out another bag, identical to the last one. No words this time, just that motionless stare. "I don't want this," I said, pushing the bag back toward him. But before I could finish, the lights inside the building went out. The window slammed shut. In that instant, he was gone. No sound, no movement, just darkness pressing in around me. I hit the gas and sped off, barely breathing. This time, I didn't trust the man's directions. My phone buzzed again. 5% now. I followed the faint GPS signal instead, choosing a different road. After a while, I reached a rusted, nearly unreadable sign. The first sign. I slowed down and stopped at the junction, realizing with a jolt that somehow I was back at that same split in the road. I could either go straight or turn right. My hand hovered over the wheel, unsure. And just then, my phone went black, cutting off the last thread of direction I had. And then I heard it, a voice, soft and close, rising from the back seat.
Turn right.
My throat clenched. I froze, breath trapped in my chest. Slowly, I turned my head. He was sitting there, the man from the drive-thru, but now his skin was ashen grey, stretched too tightly over his skull. His lips were split, blue and torn, and his eyes stared blankly empty of anything human. As I watched, his face twitched, and he leaned forward. His jaw opened wide, too wide, tearing open at the edges with a wet crack as if his skin had split from the strain. I screamed and flung open the car door, stumbling out and crashing into the underbrush. I ran, branches clawing at my arms, my breath tearing through my throat. The forest closed in around me, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. I had to get away. I broke through the trees and found myself standing once more in front of the burger shack. But this time, it wasn't just decayed. It was rotting. The windows were shattered. The neon sign blinked in a deep, wound-like red. and dark smears on the cracked glass looked disturbingly like blood. The air reeked of raw meat and burnt rubber. My legs gave out, and I dropped to my knees, gasping for breath. Behind me, something scraped across the pavement. I turned slowly as the sound grew louder, a dragging noise like bone against asphalt. There he was again, but he no longer looked human. His uniform was soaked in dried blood, one sleeve torn, and an arm twisted unnaturally behind him. His mouth was fixed in a wide grin, tongue lolling, as he dragged a bloody drive-through headset behind him, its speaker crackling faintly. He stepped closer. I couldn't move.
Your turn,
He said, voice rasping like dry leaves. Then darkness swallowed me. I don't know how long it's been. Time doesn't seem to work here. But I'm here now. Behind the glass, staring through it, waiting for the next car. A girl just pulled in. Her voice is bright as she orders a burger and asks how to get back to the city. The radio in her car murmurs something about Highway 47, something about 20 disappearances, no bodies ever found. I smile. First sign, turn right. I was halfway through my shift, wiping down glasses behind the bar, when she walked in, wrapped in a fur coat that probably cost more than a month of my rent. She ordered a gin and tonic but barely touched it. Her name, I'd later learn, was Cecilia, an elegant woman with silver-streaked hair and a voice that poured like velvet across the counter. Instead, she watched me with a smile that felt oddly maternal, but somehow predatory. We spoke, casual at first, where I was from, what I did, whether I ever thought about doing something more comfortable. I laughed nervously, brushing it off as flirtation. But then she leaned in, her perfume a strange mix of lavender and something musky.
Leon, sweetheart, why waste your night scrubbing counters and chasing tips? You deserve softness, a warm home, freshly prepared meals, clothes that fit you like they were made just for you. All I ask in return is that you stay with me.
I should have questioned it more, but I was broke, tired, lonely. And when you've had enough nights wondering if your stomach will stop growling long enough to fall asleep, even the strangest offers start to sound reasonable. So I said yes, and when I did, Cecilia's smile deepened. Slow, knowing, almost tender.
Wonderful. Then it's settled. From this moment on, you belong to me.
The mansion felt like a palace carved out of the forest. Vast, opulent, and silent as stone. Everything was impossibly beautiful. Marble floors that glowed under your feet, chandeliers that hung like frozen rain, and hallways that seemed to stretch farther the longer you walked them. Every morning I'd wake to the scent of warm food, neatly laid out by a soft-spoken maid who moved like a shadow. I never had to lift a finger. All I had to do was eat, sleep, stay healthy, and stay handsome. Cecilia told me I was perfect just as I am, so I did as I was told. And for a while I believed I was living in a dream, but dreams rot eventually. At first it was just whispers, low moans echoing from beneath the floorboards. Then came the bruises, pale blotches appearing without reason, my skin thinning like old parchment. My hair fell in clumps onto the tiled floor. I started feeling dizzy after every meal. When I voiced my concerns, Cecilia only smiled, stroked my cheek, and whispered,
Your body is simply adjusting, dear. It's cleansing itself. Soon, you'll feel renewed.
I didn't feel cleansed. I felt emptied, as if something inside me was slowly being drawn out, patient and deliberate, one quiet drop at a time. And then I did the one thing I shouldn't have. I waited until the house was silent, every light out, every footstep gone. Then I slipped into Cecilia's study, heart pounding like it already knew. The room smelled of cedar and old paper. Between thick volumes of medical texts and weathered novels, I found it. A red leather folder. Inside were records, names, faces, each one a young man who had once lived here. Everything was catalogued with cold precision. Height, weight, blood type, photos from before and after. Then I saw my own file. Leon, symmetrical build, ideal bone structure, strong immunity, highly suitable as main course. My breath hitched, and without warning, footsteps echoed down the hallway. I slipped inside the cabinet and held my breath, just as the door creaked open. Through a narrow slit, I saw Cecilia enter with two other women, both too youthful for the age their eyes betrayed. One of them pressed her hand against the bookshelf, and with a soft click, a hidden door swung open, revealing a narrow stairwell. Without a word, they disappeared into the dark below. I crept forward, peered down, and saw a room the mansion was never meant to reveal. Steel walls, stretchers, IV bags heavy with thick crimson fluid, and bodies, some still, some bound, eyes open but hauntingly hollow. A chill locked my limbs. I turned to run, but the guards were already behind me. Something slammed into my skull. Darkness swallowed everything. When I came to, I found myself lying on a soft bed dressed in a black suit I didn't recognize. Cecilia stood waiting, her smile soft as silk and twice as sharp. The guards flanked her like shadows.
You're not leaving, Leon. Not when you're so close to fulfilling your purpose.
With a nod, she sent the guards forward.
Tonight, you'll join us for something very special. Let's make sure you look your best.
The ballroom was lit like a cathedral, grand and grotesque. Cecilia stood there, surrounded by her guests, all dressed in extravagant gowns, all blindfolded. Their faces were made up like dolls, cheeks painted too red, lips too wide. Each held something in her hand: knives, forks, riding crops, belts.
Drink.
Cecilia said nothing as she poured a thick purple liquid into a glass and pressed it to my lips, forcing it down my throat. It burned going in, and my vision began to swim. Then she shoved me forward into the center of the hall.
Let the banquet begin,
she declared, tying on her own blindfold. They descended. It wasn't a meal. It was a massacre. Blind, laughing, shrieking. They stumbled toward me, arms outstretched, swinging their weapons. One grazed my arm with a blade, sharp enough to slice skin, not deep enough to kill. The scent of blood filled the air. I screamed. That was all it took. The sound triggered them like a dinner bell. They lunged, giggling, clawing, tripping over each other as they chased the source of the noise. One caught me by the hair, another whipped a belt across my back. Pain exploded in my skull. I stumbled, fell, tried to crawl. Hands dragged me backward, nails dug into my flesh, teeth grazed my shoulder like kisses from the damned. I was the centerpiece, the perfect prey on a banquet stage made of gold and rot. And their laughter, it never stopped. Not when the lights dimmed. Not when the blood soaked through my suit. Not when the last piece of me was served. Maybe trust was never meant to be given so freely. I should have known better than to believe in honeyed words. I never expected to be this close to tragedy, let alone share a room with the man at the center of it all, Luigi. His name is now burned into the annals of American true crime, a villain to some, a reluctant hero to others. But to me, he was just my hospital roommate, a young man consumed by pain, both physical and emotional, and crushed under the weight of a system that had failed him. It all began in that dull, sterile hospital room. We were both recovering, me from knee surgery, Luigi from a spinal operation meant to relieve his chronic back pain. Luigi was quiet, polite, but distant, as though speaking took more effort than he could muster. I often saw him with his nose buried in a book. Industrial Society and Its Future, the infamous 1995 manifesto by Ted Kaczynski. At first, I thought his retreat into himself was because of the pain, but it was more than that. One night, I caught him staring at the window, his jaw tight, his fist clenched. I asked if he was okay. His hollow eyes turned toward me, and for a long moment, he said nothing. Over time, he opened up. Luigi told me how he had once been a promising software engineer, a Silicon Valley prodigy, but chronic back pain had derailed his life. For years, he pushed through the agony, going from doctor to doctor, enduring treatment after treatment. When surgery became his last hope, he believed relief was finally within reach. That hope shattered when his insurance claim was denied. Luigi drained his savings to pay for the operation himself, but it brought little relief. The debt mounted, the pain persisted, and his future unraveled.
This isn't living. This is existing, and they even took that from me.
I remember nodding in shared frustration. I was no stranger to the system's indifference, but with Luigi, it was different. There was a darkness in him, a simmering anger that I didn't fully grasp until it was too late. 2 weeks after Luigi was discharged, the news broke. UHealth CEO killer unmasked. I stared at the TV in disbelief. The suspect? My Luigi, the same man who had offered me half his pudding cup when I couldn't stomach the hospital food. The details were horrifying. On the morning of December 4th, Luigi waited outside the New York Middletown, where Brian was attending an annual investor meeting. He wore a mask to conceal his identity and carried a 3D printed handgun fitted with 3D printed silencer. When he saw Brian, Luigi stepped closer. Witnesses reported hearing him shout,
Why did you deny me? Why did you deny all of us?
Then he fired. Brian collapsed outside the hotel's glass doors and Luigi disappeared into the chaos of Midtown Manhattan. The casings left behind were engraved with the words delay, deny, and depose. The nation was stunned. Authorities revealed Luigi had been staying at an Upper West Side inn under a false name. He carried forged IDs, a handwritten manifesto railing against the US healthcare system, and a loaded passport ready to flee. His fingerprints matched those found at the scene. Politicians condemned the act, offering condolences to Brian's family while sidestepping the healthcare debate. Social media, on the other hand, erupted. Some vilified Luigi, calling him a coward and a murderer. But others, many of them young, saw him as a tragic figure, a symbol of rebellion against corporate greed. Protests erupted across the country, with signs reading Free Luigi and Fix the System before it breaks more people. When Luigi's manifesto was leaked to the press, it struck a nerve. It was raw and angry, condemning the greed-driven system that exploits suffering for profit. One line read, "I wasn't working with anyone. This was my decision, driven by the pain they ignored and the hope they stole." The backlash was immediate. Security budgets for corporate executives skyrocketed. CEOs hired private protection teams, their offices fortified. The healthcare industry found itself in the spotlight, forced to reckon with questions it had long avoided. Through it all, I couldn't stop thinking about Luigi. I remembered the glimmer of hope in his eyes when he talked about his dreams of writing software that could change the world. I remembered the bitterness in his voice when he spoke of a system that robbed him of that future. Luigi wasn't a hero, but he wasn't a monster either. He was a man broken by pain, betrayed by the institutions meant to help him. His actions were indefensible, yet they forced a nation to confront uncomfortable truths. When the police finally captured him in Pennsylvania, he struggled against the officers shouting at the cameras.
That's completely out of touch. An insult to the intelligence of the American people.
And I couldn't help but wonder, if someone, anyone, had truly listened to Luigi, would this tragedy have been avoided? Or was it inevitable? The final act of a man with nothing left to lose. I've always been a meat lover, especially pork. Bacon in the morning, grilled ribs for lunch, a steaming bowl of pork belly stew for dinner. I couldn't get enough. Pork was my life, my comfort, my joy. If anyone asked, I'd joke, if pigs could talk, they'd probably hate me. But I never really thought about it. Not until that day. It started like any other. I headed out to buy fresh pork for dinner. I was walking to the local butcher, already tasting the crispy pork belly I planned to cook. The air was oddly still, no cars, no chatter, just an eerie silence that clung to the streets. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up, but I shrugged it off. Maybe it was just a slow day. As I rounded the corner, something heavy smashed into the back of my head. Pain exploded behind my eyes, and the world faded to black. When I woke up, I was in a cage. Iron bars surrounded me, cold and unyielding. Around me, other people were trapped in similar cages, their faces pale and terror-stricken. Some were crying, others murmuring prayers. My head throbbed, and I struggled to piece together what had happened. "What's going on?" I whispered. But no one answered. Then I heard it. Heavy footsteps, slow and deliberate. My heart thudded in my chest as a shadow loomed outside the cage, and then it stepped into the light. It was Peppa Pig, or at least it looked like her, but not the cheerful cartoon character children adored. No, this was a monstrous version, a grotesque parody. Its pink skin was raw and glistening, like slabs of uncooked meat. Its mouth was lined with jagged, razor-sharp teeth.
"Welcome,"
it growled, voice guttural and chilling. It held a clipboard in one clawed hand, scanning the group like a predator choosing its prey.
"Name."
It demanded from the first person. When they stammered out a reply, the creature consulted its clipboard.
"You've consumed approximately 500 kilograms of pork in your lifetime."
It said, voice dripping with malice.
"That's roughly 100 kilograms of flesh I'll need in return."
Before the man could respond, Peppa grabbed him and dragged him out of the cage. His screams echoed as he disappeared into the shadows. Peppa led him into a dimly lit room that looked like a slaughterhouse. The metallic stench of blood was overwhelming. Through the bars, I watched as she strapped him to a table. His screams echoed as her cleaver came down. Blood splattered across the walls, pooling beneath the table. I gagged, bile rising in my throat. The next person was taken, then the next. Each time, the creature read out the weight of pork they'd consumed as if it were a sentence, a tally of their sins. And each time, the screams grew louder, more desperate. I couldn't move. I couldn't think. My stomach churned with fear and nausea. Then I heard it again, the wet, sickening thud of a cleaver meeting flesh. Blood sprayed across the walls, dripping down like a grotesque waterfall. Hooks hung from the ceiling, swaying gently with chunks of human meat impaled on them. My turn was coming. I knew it. I began twisting and pulling at the ropes binding my wrists, ignoring the sharp pain as they dug into my skin. My fingers trembled, slick with sweat, but I refused to stop. My experience with tying and untying pork roasts had taught me how to handle knots, and I clung to that skill now like a lifeline. The creature stood before me, flipping through its clipboard. Finally, it stopped and grinned, revealing rows of jagged teeth.
Huh.
It hissed, its glowing red eyes narrowing.
A pork lover, aren't you? Let's see. 750 kilograms. Quite the appetite.
It turned back toward me, the cleaver gleaming in its hand. But the cage was empty. By the time it realized, I was already free, slipping into the shadows, the ropes I'd finally untied falling silently to the ground behind me.
Get back here!
It roared, its footsteps pounding behind me. The hallway was narrow and slick with blood, making every step treacherous. My breath came in ragged gasps as I ducked and weaved, desperate to escape. I spotted a large cabinet and dove underneath, curling into a ball and holding my breath. The creature stormed into the room, sniffing the air like a bloodhound. Its glowing eyes scanned the space, passing over the cabinet. I squeezed my eyes shut, praying it wouldn't find me. Then she crouched.
Found you!
She snarled, her teeth gleaming. Before she could find me, chaos erupted outside. Shouts, crashing metal, the sounds of people fighting back. Pepper hesitated, her ears twitching at the noise.
Stupid pigs.
It muttered before stomping out to deal with the commotion. I didn't waste a second. Crawling out from under the cabinet, I bolted in the opposite direction, following the faint glow of daylight. My legs burned, and my lungs felt like they'd collapse. But I kept running. That night, I sat in my apartment trembling, unable to close my eyes without seeing its face, hearing the screams. The thought of pork, of bacon, of ribs, it made me sick. I didn't need to think twice. I'll never eat pork again. The air was cool and damp as I adjusted my headlamp, the beam of light cutting through the darkness of Nutty Putty Cave. My brother Josh was a few feet behind me, his breathing steady but cautious. We'd been exploring caves together for years, but this one felt different. There was something about the way the walls seemed to close in, the way the shadows danced just beyond the reach of our lights, that made my skin crawl. Still, I pushed forward. I was John Jones, a seasoned cave explorer. Fear wasn't something I entertained.
John, you sure about this?
Josh called out, his voice echoing off the narrow walls.
This part of the cave isn't mapped. We could get lost.
I grinned over my shoulder. That's the point, isn't it? Adventure, discovery, all that. Come on, Josh. Live a little. He muttered something under his breath, but I didn't catch it. My attention was already fixed on a narrow crevice ahead, barely 18 inches wide. My heart raced. This had to be it. A passage no one had ever documented. The birth canal, they called it. I'd heard stories, rumors of its existence, and now here it was, waiting for me. I'm going in, I announced, already squeezing my body into the gap.
John, wait!
Josh's voice was sharp, panicked.
We don't know what's down there!
But I was already moving, the cold stone pressing against my chest and back. The passage was tighter than I expected, the walls scraping against my shoulders as I inched forward. My headlamp flickered, casting eerie shadows on the jagged rock. I could hear Josh shouting behind me, but his voice grew fainter with every inch I advanced. And then, suddenly, I couldn't move. Panic surged through me as I tried to twist my body, to push myself backward, but the walls were too close. I was stuck. My heart pounded in my chest as I struggled, my elbows scraping against the rock. The air felt thinner now, and I could feel the weight of the cave pressing down on me. "Josh!" I screamed, my voice echoing through the narrow passage. "Josh, I'm stuck!" There was no response. I twisted my head as far as I could, but all I could see was darkness. I tried my best to squeeze through this section. Just getting past this part would mean I could make it out. I had memorized the map by heart. And then, without warning, I slipped and fell straight down. It happened so fast. One moment I was wedged in place, and the next I was sliding downward, the rough stone tearing at my clothes and skin. I tried to grab onto something, anything, but there was nothing to hold onto. I tumbled deeper into the cave, my body twisting and turning until I came to a sudden, jarring stop. I was upside down, my legs pinned above me, my head dangling in the empty void below. The pain was immediate, a searing ache that radiated through my chest and shoulders. I tried to move, but my body wouldn't obey. I was trapped, completely immobilized. "Josh!" I screamed again, my voice hoarse and desperate. "Help me!" But there was no answer. The cave was silent, save for the sound of my own ragged breathing. I didn't know how long I hung there, suspended in the darkness, but with each passing moment, the reality of my situation became more and more clear. I was going to die here. As the hours dragged on, my mind began to play tricks on me. I saw flashes of light, heard whispers in the darkness. At first, I thought it was my imagination, but then I saw them. Shadows moving in the corners of my vision, figures standing just out of reach. One of them stepped closer, a man in a grey suit, his face obscured by the darkness. He didn't speak, didn't move, but I could feel his presence, cold and unyielding. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. They weren't just in my head, they were real. The voices faint and distant, but they seemed to be guiding me out of this place. And then, as if a curtain had been lifted, I saw them, dozens of them, their faces pale and gaunt, their eyes hollow. They were the ones who had come before me, the ones who had never left. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. My body was numb, my limbs heavy and unresponsive. The figures closed in around me, their whispers growing louder, more urgent. They were waiting for me. I realized the truth. I was one of them now. The cave was sealed, the entrance buried under tons of rock. But in the darkness, I opened my eyes. The others were there, waiting for me, their faces twisted in silent agony. I joined them, my spirit bound to this place, just as theirs were. We were the guardians of Nutty Putty Cave, the ones who would wait in the shadows, watching, whispering, until the next adventurer came seeking the birth canal. And when they did, we would be ready.
Lucid dreaming had always fascinated me. The idea of controlling my dreams, bending reality to my will, was exhilarating. I spent hours reading guides, watching videos, and joining forums to learn the craft. One recurring warning, however, intrigued me the most. Never look into a mirror while lucid dreaming. It was a rule repeated in countless posts. People claimed mirrors in dreams were portals to places your mind couldn't comprehend. But rules were meant to be broken, weren't they? That night, as I drifted off to sleep, I whispered to myself, "This is a dream. I am in control." When I opened my eyes, I stood in a crumbling mansion. The air was heavy, tinged with damp rot. The walls groaned as if alive. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, but I had a mission. I wandered through the dim corridors until I found it. An ornate mirror framed in black and silver, taller than me, standing against the far wall. My reflection was hazy, shifting like water. I hesitated, but curiosity pushed me forward. As I peered closer, the surface of the mirror rippled. My reflection vanished, replaced by something else. A scene unfolded before me, fiery chaos. Rivers of molten lava flowed through a barren landscape. Faceless figures writhed in agony, their silent screams haunting. The heat felt real, blistering my skin. Suddenly, the mirror pulled at me, its surface like a vortex. My feet slid forward. Panic surged, and I yanked myself back, knocking the mirror over. It shattered into countless shards, each reflecting fragments of the hellish scene. When I turned around, she was there. Her skin was pallid, almost translucent, veins spidering beneath. Her eyes were empty voids pulling at my very soul.
Leave!
She hissed, her voice echoing in the empty house.
Leave now, or regret it forever!
Before I could react, the dream collapsed into darkness. I woke up gasping, my heart pounding. The room was familiar, comforting, but the dream's intensity lingered. It was just a dream, I muttered, trying to convince myself. My phone buzzed. A last-minute work trip. I had to leave immediately. The journey was uneventful until the taxi pulled up at my lodging for the night. A small, secluded inn. My stomach twisted as I stepped out. The inn was the house from my dream. Every detail matched. The cracked paint, the warped wooden door, even the oppressive air. An older woman greeted me with a kind smile.
Welcome, dear. Let me take your bags. You must be tired.
Her face was eerily familiar. The same hollow eyes, the same pale complexion. Thank you, I mumbled, my voice shaking. Inside, the house was even worse. Shadows seemed to stretch unnaturally and the silence was deafening. The woman led me to the living room and gestured toward the sofa.
Rest well,
she said, her smile lingering a moment too long. That's when I saw it. The mirror. It stood in the corner, identical to the one from my dream. My knees went weak. I turned to her, my voice trembling. Where did you get that mirror? She tilted her head, her smile never wavering.
Oh, it's always been here.
She left, and I stared at the mirror, paralyzed. It was just a coincidence, I told myself, though deep down, I knew better. Minutes later, she returned with a tray.
Tea?
She offered. I took the cup, my hands shaking. She watched me, waiting. Something about her gaze felt wrong, predatory. Her smile stretched a little too wide, her eyes lingering on me too long. My fingers trembled as I held the cup, every instinct screaming at me not to drink. With a sharp motion, I flung the tea at her. The cup shattered and she recoiled, her face twisting with something unhumanly sinister. Without waiting to see what would happen next, I bolted. Outside, I flagged down a passing taxi, my hands shaking as I climbed in. As the car sped away, relief began to replace my fear. I had escaped, or so I thought. The road was empty, shrouded in a thick fog that seemed to swallow everything beyond a few meters. Suddenly, a figure appeared in the middle of the road. The driver swerved to avoid her, but the car skidded and crashed into a tree. My head slammed against the window, and the world blurred. When I came to, the driver was gone. I was alone in the wreck, surrounded by suffocating silence. Then she appeared, the pale woman, standing just beyond the shattered windshield.
Death is inevitable,
she whispered, her voice echoing in the stillness. I scrambled out of the car, running blindly through the fog until I stumbled upon a small, unlit house. The door was unlocked, and I threw myself inside, slamming it shut behind me. The house was eerily quiet, each room draped in shadows. As I opened a door at the end of the hallway, I froze. There I was, lying on a bed, my chest rising and falling as though in sleep. Is this still a dream? Or am I... Before I could finish, the pale woman materialized behind me.
You've already crossed the line. There's no going back.
I turned to her, my mind racing. If this was a dream, I could wake myself up. I lunged toward my sleeping form, desperate to return to my body. But she was faster. Her icy grip closed around my wrist, dragging me backward.
No one escapes their fate,
she hissed. I struggled, kicking and screaming, but her strength was inhuman. Her stomach stretched impossibly wide, revealing an abyss of darkness. With one final pull, she swallowed me whole.
I jolted awake from the nightmare, gasping, tears streaming down my face. I couldn't remember the last time I had a peaceful sleep. Since Peter, my only son, died in a freak accident on April Fool's Day, the nightmares had only worsened. Clutching his photo to my chest, I sobbed. Today marked 1 year since his passing. Was my dream a sign that he was still here, in some way? The sudden ring of my phone startled me. Annoyed, I picked it up, only to freeze at the voice on the other end.
Mom, I'm so cold. Someone took my body from the grave.
A chill ran down my spine. I hung up in terror, convincing myself it was a cruel April Fool's prank. But the dread in my chest wouldn't fade. After a long hesitation, I decided to go to the cemetery. The car stopped in front of the cold, desolate cemetery gate. I stepped out as the wind howled through the trees, creating an eerie sound. Walking past the rows of graves, my heart grew heavier with worry. When I reached Peter's grave, it was still intact. But right in front of the headstone lay a fresh bouquet of flowers, and scattered around were several photographs. I knelt down and picked one up. It was a picture of John's corpse, my ex-husband, along with photos of my family, Peter and John. A surge of anger rose within me. I clenched the photo tightly as old memories came flooding back. John was an abusive man. He had beaten me throughout our marriage. I took him to court for third-degree assault. I still remember the sight of him being escorted away by the police, wearing that dull grey prison uniform, his eyes burning with hatred as he glared at me. Silently, I suspected that John had been released from prison and was now seeking revenge. The phone rang again.
911 Emergency Services. What is your emergency?
I suspect my ex-husband, John Houston, has been released from prison and is trying to take revenge on me.
Has he directly threatened you?
I'm not sure. I haven't seen him.
Are you kidding us? Another stupid April Fool's prank?
No, I just have a bad feeling.
You can report it to your local police department for further investigation. Thank you.
I felt like screaming. Why wouldn't they believe me? Who would risk their own life just to pull a prank on April Fool's Day? Frustrated and helpless, I decided to search for John myself. I had a strong feeling he was nearby, but after searching every corner, I still couldn't find him. Just then, the phone rang once more. I answered, and this time John's voice came through, filled with seething hatred.
You killed our son, Lara. You let him die, so you could live peacefully on your own.
No, I didn't. It was an accident. The images of that day flooded my mind. I was working at the car wash. Peter had been trapped in the back seat of the car. He had called me through the 911 emergency line. But I thought it was just an April Fool's prank and told the 911 operator not to take it seriously. By the time I returned to the car, I realized Peter hadn't been lying. But it was too late. Peter had stopped breathing, and in that moment, my heart died with him. I didn't do anything! A noise rang out behind me. I spun around. John was standing there, a smug smile on his lips, gripping a baseball bat tightly in his hands. "John, please listen to me." But he didn't listen. He raised the bat high. Panic surged through me. I turned and ran as fast as I could, his footsteps pounding right behind me. I fumbled with my phone, dialing 911 with trembling fingers. "I'm Lara. I'm at Green Hill Cemetery. There's a man trying to kill me." Before I could finish, a rough hand yanked the phone from my grasp. John let out a low, menacing chuckle.
Sorry about that. My wife's a little worked up. Just an April Fool's joke, you understand, right?
Wasting emergency resources for an April Fool's prank is a serious matter. Be careful with your words.
Of course, I understand completely.
My blood ran cold. John was really going to kill me. I turned to run, but before I could react, a sharp, searing pain exploded in my head. John's baseball bat had struck me hard. I collapsed to the ground, warm blood spilling out, staining the cold earth beneath me. Through the haze of pain, I barely registered the sensation of John dragging me away. I couldn't fight back. He shoved me into the back seat of the car and pushed the front seat forward. My body was trapped, just like how Peter had died. "John, please, I'm begging you. It was just a terrible accident."
Save your breath. You can explain it to our son in hell.
Without another word, he walked away, ignoring my desperate pleas. I struggled, but the blood rushing to my head made me dizzy. My chest tightened. I could barely breathe. I opened my mouth, trying to scream for help, but I knew no one would come to a cemetery at this hour. The only sounds in the silence were my weak cries and the distant haunting caws of ravens. My vision blurred with blood and tears. The lack of oxygen made it impossible to focus. Everything around me faded into a hazy swirl. In that haze, I saw Peter. He stood outside the car window, his dark eyes staring at me, waiting for me to reach him. In that moment, all the pain disappeared. "Peter, this time Mommy won't leave you alone. I'm coming."